What if I told you that this guy, and yes, even this guy, as weird as that is, all exist within the same universe? Welcome back to another video. Today, we are going to be going over every single mainstream Transformers media. This includes shows, films, and major video games. That's about it. Sadly, we're not going to go over comics and manga today, as that's just a whole other ballpark. That's a whole other set of issues. But I will say that IDW and the newest Skybound run of Transformers is really good. I'm really excited, and if you haven't kept up with it, you probably should. But if you've never seen a Transformers film or TV show in your life, this video is perfect for you. And if you just want a fun overview of the series, the franchise, this video is also for you. With that being said though, we do have to answer a major question. What is the best piece of Transformers media? Well, time to transform and find out. First things first, what is this? Well, many eons ago, Takara released their highly anticipated Diaclone and Microchangers line of toy robots which turned into assorted vehicles, weapons, and accessories. Sadly, the line failed in Japan though. But not all hope was lost, as one American company saw potential in the line. That's right, after Hasbro bought the line, they repainted them, gave them new backstories, and greenlit a show which would forever be known as Okay, so what's this show about? Well, this is the original series that introduced the infamous war between the Autobots and the Decepticons, sentient robots from Cybertron which crash on Earth and disguise themselves as vehicles and other assorted machinery. Over time, the series expanded into deeper lore, introducing things and concepts like the Quintessons, Unicron, and of course Cybertron's ancient history. Now, while Seasons 1 and 2 focus on Earthbound stories, Season 3 dealt with a post-movie fallout in space. Now, this is a story as old as time. Obviously, you know that Season 1 and 2 came out, and then the movie came out, and then Season 3. And we're going to talk about the movie in just a second, but what are the pros of this original series? Obviously, it created some of the most iconic characters we have ever seen in media. It gave us our Space Jesus, that's right, Optimus Prime, and it gave us a shit ton of other infamous characters that we would love, we love nowadays and have come to know, like Megatron, Starscream, Soundwave, Bumblebee. It was really groundbreaking for the time. This is a concept that was very new, very fresh, very interesting, and it was rich with that classic 80s mecha nostalgia. In terms of cons though, the show was very episodic. Obviously it lacked a lot of cohesion, and like many old cartoons, the animation was not always the best. We had a lot of inconsistencies, and the season 4-ish thing that did come out wasn't really a season. It was just 3 episodes until the show got canned. Fun fact though, this show actually wasn't originally known as G1. G1 was a concept that we as fans developed later on after G2 came out, which we're going to briefly touch upon, and G1 is just the classification to identify it as the original series. But now let's get into that movie that we were talking about. So, this movie, set between seasons 2 and 3, features the death of Optimus Prime, a trend that we would see many times, way too much, and the rise of Rodimus Prime, who we really don't see all that often. It's pretty sad. And of course, introduced the infamous character of Unicron. It was definitely a much darker, more cinematic turn for the franchise, and introduced new major characters like Galvatron and Ultra Magnus. Now, if you want an even deeper overview of this film, I actually made a video about it, which you can watch right here. But this bold storytelling was very cool. It was very different, and it's nowadays become a cult classic film that a lot of fans resonate with. And that was it for a time being in America, of course. Because if you lived in the West, you didn't get new Transformers media for a while. Unless you count G2, which is actually not even an entire show. Basically, they reran G1 with the new title G2, where they added 3D animated bumpers in between episodes, and this very funky looking Megatron, and a lot of characters were recolored, and they re-released the toys in these funky colors. It was mostly just a marketing plot. But if you did live in the East, the original continuity was still going on, with that of a direct sequel to the Japanese dub of Season 3, obviously ignoring Season 4, focused on the Headmasters, smaller robots who transformed into heads for larger bodies. Set primarily on Cybertron and a couple other planets with heavy anime influence. It created what would be known as the G1 Japanese continuity. Basically, they established their own lore, their world was a little different, they gave rich backstories for these headmasters. In terms of cons though, it was an overly serious and dramatic tone in comparison to the American version, which people really became accustomed to. The voice acting didn't always translate the best, or characters didn't really match up with their voices. So, the experience was definitely different for sure. But with that being said though, Transformers is Transformers. New toys meant new shows. That's basically the name of the game here. And so this show got its own sequel by the name of one hell of a title, isn't it? Well, this show now heavily focuses on humans known as Godmasters. They're basically people who can transform into robots using sets of armor, and because of this, the line between human and Transformers was blurred a lot of the time in the show. And this show is primarily set on Earth with a lot of higher mysticism. While previous shows focused a lot on science and technology, we've got elements of magic and mysticism. And because of this, this show notably features a character by the name of Jinrai, who is an Optimus Prime-like figure who isn't Optimus Prime but looks a lot like him. It's a little bit confusing, and trust me, this is not the last time we're going to see an Optimus Prime clone. Obviously, in terms of pros though, the original approach to this human-robot dichotomy was very interesting, and it was very anime influenced, very anime inspired, and because of that, it gave it a very stylish storytelling. If you did unfortunately live in the West, you were very confused as to what was going on, who was Jinrai, and of course it had very minimal ties to the early Transformer shows. And so because of this, they decided to take these characters into a whole new route, and we got what was known as, instead of an Optimus Prime copycat, we got Star Saber, the new Autobot leader. And in this story, the Autobots face the Breast Force. Yeah, I know, it's very unfortunate. And Decepticon Emperor of Destruction, Deathsaurus. This show features a heroic, clean-cut anime style with very large-scale mech battles. We're taking the anime approach and very stylized approach to this franchise a lot further, a lot crazier. We got big-ass swords, we got fucking super robot-style transformations. It's crazy. And because of this, it feels very strong with that classic late 1980s, early 90s anime-style animation. Also because of this, it feels very disconnected to the original series. The lore is incredibly different. It really doesn't reference a whole lot of what was the beginning of Transformers. And because of Transformers technically being canceled in America, and because of that, not many people saw the show. There was not a lot of exposure outside of Japan, which is very unfortunate. Though nowadays we have been exposed to these characters, these concepts. But if you thought that was the end of the Japanese continuity, we're not done yet, because we have one more left to go. Transformers Zone, OVA 1980. This new one-episode OVA was meant to set up a series, but kind of failed. It introduced the Powered Masters and the Violin Guiguar. And of course, it served as a spiritual bridge into the Micromaster storyline. Pros though, this was a rare instance of what could have been the future of the G1 Japanese continuity. It sucks that we never really finished it. It never got a proper ending. And that's also the biggest con of it, is that it's only one episode, it's an incomplete story, so we never got to see the potential of what this show could have been. Right as the Japanese continuity ended, something interesting happened. We got a new Transformer show, not only in Japan, but also in the West, and this would mark the beginning of set on a prehistoric planet. Initially a survival story, it evolves into time travel, destiny, and Cybertronian heritage, revealing that this planet was actually Earth. We follow the journey of the Maximals and Predacons as they embark on their beast wars, and the battle that goes on between them as they are actually descendants of Autobots and Decepticons. This show also introduced a great many infamous characters like Optimus Primal, Megatron, not this Megatron, Dinobot, Waspinator, Black Arachnia, a whole lot of great characters. It's a very rich show. It's a lot better written than the original series, and it feels more alive, even with some funky animation, obviously. And through this, we have some greater character development and some lore expansion that was incredibly groundbreaking for the time. It established concepts in the Transformers continuity that we still see to this day. While the CGI was pretty revolutionary for the time, it's obviously not held up over time. And by today's standards, it looks very laggy, it's very rough, and it's very slow. Now, a little side quest though. Before we got into the American sequel of Beast Wars, we actually got 2 Japanese sequels. The first of which was now set in the even further future of this Japanese G1 continuity. Leo Convoy, another Optimus copycat, he's not Optimus, but it's very weird and annoying, whatever, leads the Maximals against Galvatron's Predacons. No, not our Galvatron, this Galvatron. Like I said, it's confusing, and it combines animal and vehicle transformers, which are much more lighter, more comedic anime tone, even more than before. We got new characters and new styles. This Optimus Prime Lion combo was really sick and is very unique to Japanese audiences. It wasn't officially localized, sadly. I would have loved to have gotten this in America, and because of that, the impact globally was not all there. And then of course later on, we would get and this time we follow Big Convoy. It's another Optimus clone, but he's an elephant, a mastodon. A lone wolf teacher commanding a group of rookie Maximals. They battle Unicron servants to protect a mysterious energy called Anglemois. Now, this is a more cosmic and spiritual show in comparison to its previous predecessors. In terms of prose though, it does expand the Beast Wars mythology in this Japanese line, right? With very flashy anime influence as we've come to establish with this continuity. And same thing with cons, it was not well known outside of Japan, not until most recently. But in America, we did get a pretty big sequel known as Now this show picks up with the Maximals returning to a conquered techno-organic Cybertron. Themes shift towards philosophy, fate, and transformation as the heroes are battling Megatron's Vehicon drones. And the show was very controversial because it almost created this post-apocalyptic look at Cybertron, and this deviation from the classic tone did strike a lot of American audiences. In terms of cons though, a lot of these new designs didn't really look all that good, and the deviation from Beast Wars and what was Beast Wars didn't necessarily resonate with everybody, and because of this, not everybody enjoyed what this show had to offer, especially because there was a couple inconsistencies with characters and their personalities. That's also its biggest pro. The storytelling in this show is very ambitious, right? The finale is one of the most beautiful things that we have seen in Transformers media. It ends off in a way that not only wraps up this Maximal legacy, but it also wraps up Transformers and this original continuity as a whole. Just 1 year after the end of Beast Machines, we would get a reboot to the franchise. A new show no longer set in the original continuity. A new show known as This reboot for younger audiences features Optimus Prime and a new crew fighting Megatron and his Predacons. No longer tied to G1 or Beast Wars, but this mix of comedy, Monster of the Week light drama really resonated with younger audiences. Pros though, it was very accessible for kids. It had a lot of fun designs, a lot of cool concepts, a lot more color and stylization to the show, and that's what people enjoyed. But its biggest con was that it wasn't for an older audience. Appealing to the kid demographic, the English dub was not all that good, very clunky. Now, the next 3 entries would be released in Japan, and while each one was intended to be a standalone series, Hasbro in America decided to connect all the dubs and create one singular story known as the Unicron trilogy, as he played the villain between all 3 shows. So, let's start from the beginning. This began with Autobots and Decepticons race to find the Minicons, Transformers that power up larger bots. This show introduces a new Optimus Prime, Megatron, and Hotshot. The second half grows more intense, culminating in Unicron's awakening. In terms of pros though, we had a pretty strong build up for the later episodes, a lot of great foreshadowing, good character arcs, especially for that of Optimus and Starscream. They're the 2 standouts of the show, and people love them and still adore these versions of the character to this day. And of course, the toy line synergy was phenomenal. Even to this day, we're still getting new renditions of these characters and these toys, and I still want that Armada Optimus Prime so badly. But in terms of cons though, of course its poor early animation does show sometimes, and with the rush dubbing, it did not always hold up. And with that being said, we have a trend that we would see in many shows. That's right, weak human side characters. An idea that, well, you know. Let's move on to its sequel. This sequel to Armada, set 10 years later, follows the Autobots as they harvest energy while Unicron's body is still out there somewhere. Megatron returns again in a new body, as he would do many times, and the story dives into power struggles across space. And of course, it was notable for being this another 3D animated Transformers show with 2D animated humans. It's a bit weird. The show is set a lot more in space now and introduces new and cool concepts like power linking, which is a very bold experimentation for the franchise in the show. But in terms of cons, its animation, while it's 3D and a lot better than Beast Wars, still wasn't all that good. It still came off as pretty clunky, and with this confusing plot, dull pacing, and of course there was the character regression that we would see with people like Starscream. But how did the third one hold up? Transformers Cybertron 2005 to 2006. Following Energon, a black hole threatens the universe. The Autobots search for cyberplanet keys across worlds. Each world with different elements like speed, jungles, giants, and even humans offer unique challenges. Cybertron, while originally written as a standalone, was unfortunately dubbed to be in the Unicron trilogy, as we know. So what are the pros though? Well, we had a very cool setting. Set into space once again, we have a lot more planets and worlds to explore. And of course, we had these memorable designs, especially with that of Galaxy Convoy, aka Optimus Prime, who was a lot better looking than his Energon counterpart. But in terms of cons though, this very repetitive, let's go to a planet, get a thing, leave the planet, go to another planet, get a thing, do it all over again. Structure was very poor, and it kind of was just there to fill in the runtime, which is very sad. And for about 1 year, that was about it. We had this new Unicron trilogy that had ended on a relatively good note, and while it was very anime and super robot inspired, Hasbro decided to take the franchise into an all-new route with their brand and their new 2D animated Transformers show known as this fan favorite radical reinvention with stylized animation focused on character-driven storytelling. Now we have a younger, less experienced Optimus Prime who leads a small maintenance crew of Autobots on Earth, protecting it from Decepticons, supervillains, and even secret government agencies. It includes many nods to G1, Beast Wars, and even the Japanese lore. We had a lot smarter writing, incredible character arcs, especially with that of Prowl, Starscream, and Optimus, with visually bold animation, with fan favorite versions of many of our favorite Transformers. The animation style was very divisive among fans. This very stylized look at Transformers was very cool, but it was hard to translate it into toys, and because of that, a lot of the toys didn't necessarily match the character designs in the show. And sadly, because of what was going on in the world, the show didn't get to finish its show. There was more seasons planned, and it didn't get to do what it wanted to do. Kind of sad, but what can you do? But not all hope was lost, because at the same time, a new Transformers project was developed for the franchise. That's right, we got our first live-action film, spearheaded by Michael Bay. Well, you know the Bayverse, so let's just start right at the beginning. Directed by Michael Bay, this blockbuster brings Transformers into a real-world scale. Team Santwicki gets caught up in the war as Autobots hunt the Allspark, while Decepticons plot domination. Shia LaBeouf, Megan Fox, and explosive action dominate this film. Its cutting-edge VFX for 2007 was some of the best stuff we have seen. Of course, it has explosive action, and it grossed over $709 million globally at the box office. It was a big deal. With that being said though, the cons were a lot. There was very thin character development, heavy on the eye candy, and of course a shit ton of product placement. But with that box office, this film proved to be very successful, and because of that we got many sequels, starting off with The Fallen returns with a plan to harvest Earth's energy. Familiar faces return with an even bigger scale. So what are the pros though? As with the last film, the visuals were very impressive. Obviously the VFX in these movies are really great, especially in this one. And it maintained a lot of fan appeal, sort of, kind of. But with that being said though, the cons were a lot more than the last film. The plot was very underdeveloped as there was a writer's strike going on the time, so the script wasn't really fully finished, and it's not well received. There was a lot of crude humor, and it was just a very raunchy and crude experience. It was another hit at the box office, and we got what we thought was going to be the end of this trilogy. Earth discovers ancient Cybertronian tech on the moon. Autobots face a new Decepticon plot involving Sentinel Prime and his world destruction plan. The stakes are even higher, but what will the Autobots do? Will they stay to protect Earth? Will they leave forever? The high production value, as we've established, meant that VFX was even better. If the first one was good, the second one was great. This one was so great. And the thrilling action sequences were some of the best we've seen on screen. Some of the best thrilling action sequences. But what are the pros though? Well, it had a very bloated runtime with a muddled tone that really just didn't help the film and its characters. This film is incredibly violent and definitely not meant for kids, but this franchise is, so it's kind of a weird gray area. But now we're going to go back in time to 2010. As Hasbro had just canceled their Transformers animated show, they wanted to create a new continuity which is tied through their new games and shows. A single universe by the name of the Aligned Continuity. And this began with the hit video games Transformers War for Cybertron 2010 and Transformers Fall of Cybertron 2012. Depicting the fall of Cybertron into chaos, you alternate between Decepticons and Autobot campaigns, witnessing Megatron's rise and Optimus's reluctant path to leadership. The gameplay allows players to control iconic characters like Starscream, Bumblebee, Soundwave, with a very Gears of War style cover system and seamless robot-to-vehicle transformation. And its direct sequel, Fall of Cybertron, follows the final days of the Autobot-Decepticon war, culminating in the Ark's launch to Earth. It adds deeper storytelling, better graphics, and gameplay variety. Also features a very powerful portrayal of Optimus and Megatron's final stand. These games were a hit and served as a prequel to our next show. Yes, while this is technically connected in the Aligned Continuity, because this game and its sequel show were made by different studios and different companies, the creative vision was very different. This was a darker, more cinematic series. Optimus Prime and his elite team hide on Earth with human allies while battling Megatron, who returns with Dark Energon and a zombified army. This show explores Cybertronian history, Unicron, and the history of the 13 Primes, which is a concept that we would go on to see much greater on down the line, alongside its great depth and its great lore expansion. So, in terms of pros though, it was very high quality CGI. Where Energon and Beast Wars failed, this show succeeded. And with that, it had a very mature tone, deep mythology, brought back many of the original actors. But in terms of cons though, it can feel very serious at times. It had a very limited robot cast due to its animation budget, and the humans occasionally do drag on. And this show was great. For a time being, this was our definitive Transformers continuity. Alongside its side show, it's not really a sequel, but more so it's like companion show. Yeah, let's just go to the title card. Aimed for younger audiences, this show follows a rescue team of Autobots learning about humanity and safety on Griffin Rock. No Decepticons, they just focus on natural disasters and teamwork. This is an excellent show for preschoolers. It's a show that has been going on longer than Prime has, and it teaches a lot of great lessons in life about problem solving, cooperation, and things like that. Of course, it's not a show meant for older audiences. This is clearly a show meant for little kids, and that's okay. No real Autobot conflict or deeper lore or anything like that. The occasional Prime crossover, but that's about it. Then we got the real sequel to Transformers Prime. Another divisive intro. Yep, that's right. Set years after Prime, Bumblebee forms a new team to hunt down escaped Decepticon prisoners. This is a much more comedic and lighthearted show than Prime, with episodic missions and younger characters. It was a very refreshing tone. If you thought Prime was too serious, this was a show that you were going to enjoy because of its lighthearted and comedic nature. It had some really cool robot designs, and of course, it introduced Bumblebee as this very leadership-like character. What are the cons though? Of course, the tonal whiplash after Prime did despair a lot of longtime fans like myself from watching the show and finishing it, and a lot of the villains were undercooked. Now let's go back to the movie, because while you thought Dark of the Moon was the end of the film franchise, you were very wrong, because Michael Bay is a greedy man, so of course he had to make his next Transformers movie. It follows Autobots hunted by a government agency and introduces Dinobots and the hit villain Lockdown. I don't even know what the pros of this movie are. I really could not tell you, because Jesus, it's just full of cons, isn't it? The humor is incredibly bad. The fucking narrative is so bloated. So, Michael Bay made a big piece of dog shit, didn't he? So what happened? Well, he made another one. That's right. Now, if you thought Age of Extinction was bad, this movie explores the mythological roots, Transformers tied to Knights of the Round Table, Merlin's staff, and a brainwashed Optimus Prime, now going by Nemesis Prime. And of course, Cade Yeager is still in the film. Yay. So what are the cons though? This movie was critically panned. It was so bad, it lost $100 million through its shitty plot, disconnected tone, and of course pretty much destroyed the Bayverse. Well, at the same time over there on Netflix, a new show was developed to promote new toys. This would be known as the Prime Wars Trilogy. A trilogy of short-form web series serves as one long continuity that tells a story to these new higher-end, higher-quality toys. It covers conflicts over combiners, uncovering ancient Prime artifacts, and introduces god-tier-like Transformers. Even though this show was just meant to sell you toys, it was very rich in its G1 mythos, and it had a lot of great voice talent, with a toy line that, as we established, was really great for people of all ages, very collector level quality stuff. But there's not a lot of episodes, and each episode's pretty short, and the light production values meant that it was very niche and not everybody watched it, and it wasn't necessarily something that you had to watch either. So then after that, Netflix decided, you know what, let's keep selling toys, let's keep making shows. So we got this was an even darker, more serialized take with dark overtones structured in 3 different arcs: Siege, the Cybertronian War, and the Underground Resistance; Earthrise, the Autobots flee to Earth searching for seeds throughout the galaxy; and of course Kingdom, they time travel to Earth introducing the Maximals and the Predacons. It was pretty cinematic, very mature themes surprisingly, with expensive world building and epic storytelling. But in terms of cons though, the dense lore and mythology did overwhelm casual viewers. If you weren't a fan of the franchise, you were not going to be a fan through this show. But Netflix was not done quite yet, because they had to make one more show to sell toys, with that of... This show begins with Bumblebee suffering amnesia and working with Windblade to uncover his past. The episodes are short, only being about 11 minutes, fast-paced, and reintroduce fan favorites like Megatron, Soundwave, and of course Optimus Prime. Later seasons would expand on the cosmos and revisit past eras with multiple episode arcs. So, what are the pros though? Well, it had some pretty concise storytelling, and it was accessible for new fans, a great introduction into the franchise. In terms of cons though, slow pacing early on. The animation quality with many of these shows isn't always the best as it fluctuates, but lurking in the background, we got a very successful sequel to Rescue Bots. This show follows young Rescue Bot cadets training on Cybertron, and of course, like the previous show, it focuses on nice life lessons like teamwork, responsibility, and first missions in a safe, supportive environment. What are the pros though? As with the last one, it's a kids show, so a lot of good, nice, strong lessons, very, very positive, overly happy characters, all fun and jazz. But in terms of cons though, like we've established, this very kid-centered show did not really appeal to the mass audiences. But once again, we were back. While the Bayverse did fail in a very sad manner, we did get a new reboot after Bay left the franchise. Something new. Something that was fresh and exciting. This heartfelt spin-off, set in 1987, follows teen Charlie Watson, who befriends Bumblebee, a Volkswagen Beetle shell hiding a damaged Autobot. This team bond really anchors into the small-scale story and really captivated audiences from a different point of view. So what are the pros here? Well, it had a very strong emotional story and narrative. This film was very nice and warm, and it wasn't a big blockbuster. With that being said though, there was a lot of cons. Basically, the fact that this film was a lot smaller scale diverges from Bay's huge blockbuster aesthetics, and because of that, not everybody watched this film. Luckily though, the critical success of this film meant that it would get at least one more sequel. Reintroducing the Maximals and Beast Wars lore. Set in 1994, Noah Diaz teams up with Autobots and Beast allies to stop Unicron's Herald. And it ends with a nice little nod to G.I. Joe. Of course, they finally brought Beast Wars into live action in the films. Kind of, sort of. The Maximals, but still. And the human-robot dynamic in this film was some of the best that we have seen in a long time. As I mentioned previously, humans and Transformers can be very divisive, but I'm glad that this film actually made them good and actually made them useful. So fun. But in terms of cons though, the continuity is a little wonky in this film, because this franchise in terms of movies is still trying to pick itself back up. They had to do things that appeal to certain audiences and not others, and so we get hints at things in the movie that we're not going to see for a while. And sadly, because of failures like The Last Night and the fact that Bumblebee was a smaller scale movie, it grossed less money than Last Night. But it wasn't all bad, because we did get our newest TV show. We're back to the kid appeal show, kind of, sort of, mostly. Earthspark makes a bold new direction for the franchise. Set after the long-standing Autobot-Decepticon war, the series introduces a new era where bots and humans coexist and work towards reconciliation. The story centers on a human family, the Maltos, who discover and adopt Terrans, brand new Transformers born on Earth named Twitch and Thrash. Unlike previous series, Earthspark focuses heavily on themes of identity, empathy, and family, balancing traditional Autobot/Decepticon conflicts with the emotional journey of their young characters, both human and cybernetic, growing into their roles in a post-war society. Look, it's another kid's show. It teaches you some really great life lessons. Sadly, a lot of parents don't like the show because of its non-binary characters, and if you're one of those parents, go fuck yourself, because this show is pretty good. And finally, as of recent, we have the newest addition to the Transformers mythology. Now set in a universe combining all elements from many different timelines, this new film was This animated film depicts the early relationship between Orion Pax, who would later be known as Optimus Prime, and D16, who would later be known as Megatron. This film is rich in mythology and Cybertronian ancestry and its world, and what this Cybertronian world became before the war. Well, it has stunning animation, mature themes, of course, and like Bumblebee, it was received very critically well. And in fact, it might just be the best Transformers movie of all time. We don't really know. But in terms of cons though, there's no plans for a sequel as of right now. It's pretty sad, but Josh Cooley announced that there is no plans for this film. It seems like it didn't make enough money to gross or warrant a sequel, which is very sad, and I really do hope that we do get a Transformers 2. But as with the 1986 film, if you want more of my thoughts on Transformers 1, you're just gonna have to check out this video. And that's it, for now at least. I know it's been a long ride, and I don't want to take up any more of your time, but we do have one more question that we need to answer. What was the best piece of Transformers media? And the answer is that there is no real answer. The beauty of this franchise is that it's constantly growing and evolving. From gorilla robots to truck robots to shoe robots, they somehow always keep the same charm. I mean, look at how many times Optimus Prime has been a blue and red truck, or a blue and red vehicle, or just had a blue and red color scheme. And that's what I find beautiful about these films and shows. I mean, who doesn't feel like a kid again when they just get a new Transformers toy and all they're doing is just transforming it back and forth for hours and hours on end. But that's all for today. Let me know what your favorite Transformers media is. And as per usual, I just want to say thank you, and thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch me talk about peeing robots. Until next time, see you, Space Cowboys.